Hi, hello, welcome to the Old Geezer's Diary on Tuesday, the 27th of December 2022. Excuse me being a bit rattly, perhaps. I'm still coming down from this horrible cold that I had that stopped me doing anything before Christmas. It was disgusting, but at least it didn't stop me eating a Christmas dinner. What can you say? Okay, I hope you had a good Christmas, and I'd love to hear from you one way or the other. I know a lot of people have had quiet and quite lonely Christmases. If you have, let us know, because it would be interesting to see what you got up to, what you actually managed to do, or what you didn't manage to do that you wanted to do. Because our business here at the Old Geezer's Diary is telling the world what older people's lives really are like. So many people look around at pensioners and think, they're all right, they've got loads of money, no problems, but most of us, really life isn't like that too much. Many of us have got kind of just enough to scrape through and do some of the things we want, but many of us can't even do that. Many of us have to make that choice between food poverty or heat poverty. We can't afford to keep our houses warm at the same time as we keep ourselves fed. And I want to know about that, and I want to be able to talk to the world about it and get people to understand that life as an older person in Britain isn't easy for everybody. Okay, that's enough of that. That's enough of my little kind of, pep talk for me, I guess. I want to talk about a couple of things today. One is a bad thing and one is, well, a nice, interesting thing. First thing to talk about is something called Digital Exclusion. I don't know what you make of that. I've heard of it before, and the context for older people is really summed up in a letter that I found in a Northern Irish paper called The Newsletter. And in it, a gentleman wrote in and said, I'm suffering from digital exclusion. I can use some of my technology, but some of it kind of lose it a bit because I find it hard to keep up with all the demands. So things like updating your systems and putting in new apps and all this kind of stuff kind of passes him by. And I now fully understand what he's saying because I'm trying to cut down on quite a lot of the stuff that I use because I find it too much of a pain to use and too much of a pain to keep up with. I'm sorry, guys, there you go. But that gentleman really rung bells with me because the one that he really got a little bit upset about really was a big supermarket said, we've got this wonderful offer for old age pensioners, but the only way they put that offer out in the world was by the internet. So in other words, if you were an old age pensioner and you like to save money, you like to buy from a supermarket that saves you money, you wouldn't know about this if you didn't have an online presence in some way or another. I knew about it because I happened to use that supermarket anyway. And the reality is that I put notices up on all the pages I run, and I still do, including this one. So that people know that this is happening. But it's increasingly true that if you're not on the internet, you don't get all the details of everything that may affect your life. And that's what digital exclusion is all about. If you feel digitally excluded, get in touch with me. I really want to hear from people who think they're missing out or who know they're missing out on offers, on support, on help, on things that are publicised online but are not passed on to ordinary people like you and me who may not use the internet at all, very much. I don't know. A lot of older people I know, like me really these days, use it mainly for keeping in touch with family. I also do this, which means that I have to kind of keep an eye on stuff that's happening in the world. But in reality, it would be quite easy for me not to do that. It would be easy for me to kind of drop a bit out of context and not see the offers that are going on and not seeing the support that's available from, charities, from the government, from whoever. I would be digitally excluded. So if you are feeling excluded from things, I'd love to hear from you. Let's do more research into this from our point of view and try and get some real figures. one of the things I really wanted to do with the Old Geezers show was to actually talk about good things as well as bad things. And this is one of the best things I've come across recently. It's a book by a lady called Elly Griffiths. That's not her real name. But it's an excellent, if you like, it's kind of a police procedural. It's kind of a mystery novel, and it features a lady called Ruth Galloway, who is an archaeology professor, and I find them fascinating, and they're beautifully written by Elly Griffiths, and there's a whole series of them, and she's written this series, and picking out the book that I dropped on the floor a moment ago, she's written this series, and this series is about a magician, an ex-magician who's now become an actor, and a police officer who are chums going back. This is set in the 50s straight 60s, and I have to tell you, these books are absolutely fantastic. If you're looking for a really interesting thrillery mystery type book and a good read, a seriously good read, then this series by Elly Griffiths is fabulous. I love it, and if you haven't read them, let me recommend them. I'm sure you'd enjoy them. For a moment, just have a listen to this lady. A couple of years ago, I think 18 months ago, I recorded a brief chat with her, and here she is. This is Elly Griffiths, and she'll tell you a bit more about these books.
Ruth is a forensic archaeologist. She works at a made-up university called the University of North Norfolk. And she goes into work one day and she finds a police officer waiting for her, DCI Nelson. And he wants her advice, because I knew from my husband, who's an archaeologist, that the police do ask for forensic archaeologists for their advice when they find buried bodies. So Nelson has found some bones buried on the marshland, and he thinks they might be the remains of a child who disappeared 10 years ago. Ruth goes to examine the bones, and she knows almost immediately that they're over 2,000 years old. So they're not the bones of this child, but she is then drawn into the investigation and incidentally into a very complicated relationship with the policeman, DCI Harry Nelson. So that was the first book. That was The Crossing Places. I only had a one-book deal, so I didn't know that there would be any more. I did kind of cunningly end the book on, I suppose you'd call it a kind of an emotional cliffhanger. So I did hope that there would be more, really. And now, as I say, here is book 12.
And there you have it for today. We haven't done a live show today because I wanted to concentrate on a couple of subjects and get them right. So we were looking at Digital Exclusion, and we were looking at books by Elly Griffiths. If you have anything to contribute in the way of conversation, comments, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to see those comments and the conversation coming up. And I promise you, as ever, I will reply, and we'll have a proper conversation about things that interest us. I'm Chris. This is the Old Geezers Show, and I'll see you soon.